Shanti, good evening. Happy International Women's Day. And our topic today is how an easy nature can save time. As usual, we'll start this interview with the Raj Yogi with a reflection. Even as I sit here inside, I might still feel I'm racing, rushing, doing. During the day, we're constantly feeling that race against time. What I have to get done in a certain amount of time. And that pressure of time multiplies when it enters my mind, as if my mind is racing far into the future, trying to beat time. The last thing I think of is slowing down, becoming still. And yet that might be the best thing to do, the best use of my time is pause, catch my breath, allow the mind to slow down. Perhaps my mind works best not when it's racing, but when it's peaceful. Om Shanti. Hey, welcome to the interview with Yogi. The topic this evening: easy nature saves time. So we usually have these lovely slogans that we hear for those who are in the regular morning class. And it was a beautiful slogan. Let me see if I can find it here. Make your nature easy and your time will not be wasted. And that's really stayed with me. And I was thinking about perhaps not even realizing what is an easy nature and what's so appealing about it. And I remember when I first came into the study, I heard easy and I didn't really have a good feeling about it. Maybe because it it was definitely a superficial idea,
Mm.
you know, not caring, but no depth, maybe um, maybe avoiding things. But as time went on, definitely it has changed considerably.
I think we definitely like this word when we hear that something will be easy rather than difficult. It's a very appealing word. And I know for me in the study, I heard that easy was actually one of the signs of great spiritual maturity or development, that there's a very easy nature. And if we look at the opposite of easy, it's uneasy, feeling uneasy or unsettled or very affected or sensitive to what's going on. I think that helps us to get a sense of what we're talking about by looking at uneasy. But this easy nature is that whatever it is, incredible spiritual maturity, that reactivity. I always think of it as not snagging on things. That feeling, some little thing happens and we're stuck there. And it's really affecting everything, our mind, our heart, our behavior, our choices. It's as if our mind got snagged on an incident. So very easily affected by things, very easily influenced. That's a different kind of easy. And that makes us uneasy when we're so easily influenced. Versus an easy nature, it's not that I am apathetic or careless or negligent about anything, but actually that I can accommodate a lot and stay intact. So one way the reason we say it's so spiritually developed, just talking about this weekend, that something I noticed with ballet dancing is that ballet dancers, we hear it over and over, they make it look so easy. They'll do these incredibly, challenging, advanced movements, but they make it look so easy that ballet dancing has even been dismissed as an athletic endeavor because it just doesn't look arduous. And what souls don't know is it takes incredible poise, strength, power, accuracy to make something look easy. A bit like the swan gliding on the surface of the water, they look so easy. But if you looked at what power was required to be able to do that, I think we could understand the spiritual depth needed to have an easy nature.
Now, how would you're mentioning that easiness is a sign of maturity? Can someone just be born and just be easy?
I've met people who don't seem as much affected by what's going on. And we've talked about this a lot in the spiritual study, that I think everybody has one virtue or another, but we sort of suggest it might be mixed with some other things as well, so that in certain circumstances, that virtue just will not be able to bear up. So it depends where the easy nature is coming from. It's a beautiful quality. And yes, I've met people who just seem really not affected, able to walk into what seems like challenging situations. But at some point, there seems to be a breaking point. Where is that easy nature coming from? And if it's something that's just coming naturally, it's almost like doing nothing to sustain it, which can be a problem if I don't appreciate the contrast.
Now, it seems like this is sort of detracting from, but it's come up in multiple conversations I hear from others. But someone who's on the spiritual endeavor, and they're probably annoyed that they don't have an easy nature, and they look at others who have easy nature. Does it make them any less? Like, are they having a very small understanding themselves?
I think that very often souls are drawn into spiritual practice because they become aware of their own uneasy nature and it disturbs them and they'd like to do something about it. So that's very good. And I think it's, we're almost hyper vigilant to the uneasiness of our nature, that lack of being able to respond in a peaceful way. I always think of things as loyal indicators rather than bothersome on the spiritual journey, that I appreciate when I notice something that perhaps isn't a sign of spiritual development when it's coming up and say, oh, okay, so that's an area that might need a little work. And again, this goes back to training in physical movement, that we come in to learn. If you're a perfect, advanced prima ballerina, no one is born that way to start with. But if you are, you're not going to go and, the idea is that you're going to ballet school to become that, not that you've come already in that form perfect. And I think sometimes a lot of uneasiness is caused inside because we expect perfection. Mm-hmm. We're here to learn and to understand and to develop. So I think that needs to be appreciated when we come into it. So there are going to be things that emerge, become, uncovered as we're moving along. We become aware of our own uneasiness, and that's to be expected. That's why I'm here, is to learn and be able to grow and develop that nature.
It's fascinating when you're sharing using the example of ballet, that it looks like it's easy, but how much training it's required. Mm-hmm. And it makes me think about spirituality in general, that it's not necessarily deemed to be something that has depth. Mm. In the sense that there has been through time a reputation that it is flaky. I'm using that word because I've heard that word being used. It's running away from situations. You're just flying on cloud 9 and not really addressing what's happening in reality. There's this interesting reputation that spirituality has, not dealing with reality.
Yeah, I think that definitely in perhaps just a little simpler or lighter way, that sometimes it's considered not relevant. So we hear, there's spirituality and then there's real life, and as if they are two separate things, and perhaps spirituality is not relevant or applicable to real life. Whereas definitely we want to explore living spiritually, and everyone again likes life to not be a hardship and a challenge and adversity and climbing up this rocky mountain all the time. We would like it to be peaceful and flowing and easy. And that's really the speciality of spirituality. It's extremely relevant. When I think about, which very much the slogan, I've seen people who are the embodiment of that slogan, and, have really gone to the spiritual study and practically applied it. And they're so useful in real life challenging situations. I would want to be on, stranded on desert island, because they're just so wise in being able to respond effectively. When I hear easy nature saves time, I think of efficiency and effectiveness a lot. And that's really what these souls have through their spiritual development in real life situations.
What came to mind when I heard that slogan was that they're not one who has that nature, they're not controlling everything. And that when you're controlling things, everything becomes a problem, and there's always questions about this and that, and what is the connection? What is basically this connection between easy nature and maturity?
Yes, it's back to the example of the dance or having that power. I often joke, just so souls feel better, but they know that it's a joke, but it's not true. But we often joke if we're in a fitness class and some portable equipment is involved, maybe unstable equipment, and they find that they're falling all over the place. And I say, you know what? It's not you, it's the equipment. I always blame the equipment. It's the equipment's fault, it's not you. And they laugh because they know, of course, that's not the case. So the thing we want control over is actually the self, but we keep trying to control outside things. And that makes no sense in a fitness class. It's not like I'm going to look at the equipment and say, balance better. No, I'm the one who needs to balance, but I'm not going to try and control the outer environment. I know it's about me developing that self-control. So spirituality looks at not controlling other things, but that easy nature comes from having remarkable self-mastery, self-control. And therefore, when I move through situations, I'm able to maintain spiritual integrity, as we call that inner peace, that easiness, that inner peace, which is an extremely useful response, especially in challenging times.
You know, it's interesting because we're listening to a class this evening, and one of the senior students was mentioning about this aspect of detached observer. And it's a really important capacity in the study. It's the same as saying that I am aware, that I'm so conscious. What is this relationship between being a detached observer and easiness? Because there is a connection of peace with respect to both.
I once heard someone sharing a story, which I found really interesting. It was about EMS, emergency medical response, when they are arriving or driving to a scene that they've been called to, where there's an accident. And, you know, it's quite, I don't think we're fully aware, it's actually quite difficult for them when they're driving to the scene, if not dangerous. They're having to drive full throttle through traffic, sometimes very clogged traffic, clogged roads, and they can literally be just inches away from other cars as they're trying to navigate through. And what I was told is that they have an extremely calm demeanor as they're driving to the situation. And you know, so again, that saves time, that efficiency and effectiveness, because they have such a calm nature. And I've actually seen EMS when they arrive at a scene, some think they're easy. You know, I remember once they arrived, I was the one to greet them, and there's the casualties inside. And it looks like they were just coming for a cup of tea, you know, they just sort of slowly, they walk, they're very measured. And I remember feeling they're so effective. If they arrived crazed, I would just send them away. Now, the thing that someone said is, what if they got the call and the call said your wife or your son or your child is in distress? They would crash on the way because they'd be so disturbed, so attached, that they'd actually be disturbed. They'd no longer be efficient driving through traffic, because it's been said they're so calm when they drive through that traffic. They have to be, because it's quite dangerous. They really have to have their wits about them. They can't be distracted. And when they arrive at the scene, they're so calm. But what if they arrive at the scene, it's their, as they say, a relative, a relation? You know, I don't think they could. I don't think we'd want them to arrive.
This is what limited ease.
Exactly. So it's that their detachment that actually makes them effective. When people hear detachment, they think it means uncaring, where I've seen the exact opposite. Because they have that detachment, they actually are able to provide care. So it's the detached observer, is that this idea of not, when we say no attachments, or that freedom to respond from our highest potential is what we're talking about, rather than being limited or conditional or affected. And that then shuts down or disconnects us from those capacities within. So this is the idea of the detached observer.
So the student that was sharing about that, it was Sister Mohini, who's who's very much involved in so many of the international areas of this organization. So lots of big things to make decisions about. And I remember she was sharing about being a detached observer doesn't mean you're not still having concerns and thinking about things, she was saying. And that I felt like she was trying to clarify, it means it's not that you stop thinking, like you just shut down. And it made me realize, now that you were sharing, what it was, this idea that I had about easiness in the past. And maybe it's because individuals I know, which is a superficial easiness, they seem like they're very light. But once when it comes to a serious matter or serious, not heavy, but they just would run away from the situation. And I think that this is probably where that idea is like, I don't want to be easy that way. That doesn't seem like you're effective at all. You might seem like on a superficial way.
Yeah, and I think that's why, for me, easiness and power, or easiness and maturity, have a very strong connection that I would again see in movement, that souls would be able to make something look so deceptively easy that others were about to run out and try it themselves and then realize I can't even get this thing off the ground, but they make it because they're so strong, they're so powerful, they're so developed. We were talking about this the other day, that there's something called calisthenic athletics, which is all body weight. You don't use any weights or anything like this. And it's very often dismissed because it's felt the only way I can become powerful is by lifting something heavy, whereas there's no weights involved. I really am most interested in these athletes. Actually, I've never really been pulled too heavy. And the reason is because they have incredible self-mastery and power, actually. They make things look so easy. They can, just hook on to the edge of a building and like Spider-Man and just pull themselves up. And it looks like I could do it. They make everything look so easy. And where there's easiness, there's efficiency. And you can see this in movement, that their movement is taking the path of least effort. So it doesn't look, there's not a lot of grunting and groaning and sweat. So it looks like nothing is going on. It's just incredible efficiency. Again, that saving of time, that saving of resources. When one is internally powerful, they're far more efficient. So they're not running away, they're responding, but from a place of such inner power.
Is power then required to really maintain a sense of true inner peace?
Absolutely. That's the main thing. We talk about is the power of purity. So you might call it, I suppose, a soft power, but the number one power that we struggle with is the power to let go. This is one of the highest forms of power, the power to let go. Because we can't, again, that snagging of the mind we talked about, because there isn't that power, we get sort of snagged on all sorts of things that take away our inner peace. We just keep ruminating on really sometimes very small things that happen, but it's just taking peace from our mind.
So the snagging, which is this attaching to things, expectations, and so forth. When we go to India, we always, we often wear these Punjabi suits. I'm not sure if you've seen Punjabi suits, but they're very simple and they have pockets on the ends. Since we moved into this place where we had these door handles that stick out. I don't know how many times I walk by and my pocket gets snagged. And every time that happens, it makes me think about attachment.
Yeah, now you have to use your time to fix any rips so you're not saving time.
But it really makes me think about why that slogan really touched me this morning, about when there's real fullness, when there's peace, like you don't kind of get stuck on things and you don't make a mountain out of something very small.
Definitely. It's incredible when the soul is spiritually developed or has these inner resources or powers. We use the term highest potential, but we're really able to respond to things from a very useful, benevolent, peaceful, productive place. And I think that's really, that easy nature is, again, deceptive, just as with dance. It's actually quite powerful.
Is there a karmic ripple effect when I am not easy, trying to control things, but trying to save more time, I suppose?
I remember, and I think maybe you've heard this story. It will waste time in the long run. That's going to be one of the karmic ripples. turns if I try that approach. But there was this story, and I'll try and make it short because it has quite a long. But this soul who's quite, quite high level professionally, international high level professionally, great depth of expertise in terms of event planning and dealing with VIPs, etc., and planning a big global program with VIPs, etc. But their first approach is extremely controlling, that they're going to do everything. And because they have all the expertise, so they're doing everything, controlling everything, basically bossing everyone around, etc. And what will be the return of that? Well, as the program went along, the development went on, these little incidents started to emerge that they had not anticipated, and they actually needed help to address from the team, but they had sort of alienated the team by their approach to the project. And so now time was being wasted. They were running out of time, and eventually they had to renounce that controlling position and move to a more respectful, cooperative approach. And this is how they started to save time. They started to save time. So although it looks like it should be effective, it's the same as when I see sometimes souls approach to ballet moves. They kind of take the brute force controlling approach, and it actually uses far more resources. So not just saving time, but saving wealth, saving thoughts. So much is saved if I have this lightness, this easiness, this peace, this detached observer, this being, I think that the term really is this freedom from desire. Whether it's expectations or whatever the case is, freedom from desire really frees us to operate at a far more efficient level.
Do you feel, you've been in this site 25 years, that just because you become more experienced, trusting, going into that experience where you feel who you really are, and then there's that peace that comes, and to be able to sustain that through the day, take the moments to pause when sometimes it feels like it's internal pressure, but it just feels like pressure that I have to get this done, I have to do this, I have to, appease these expectations.
Yeah, I think there's always that kind of force. I went through a period for a while where, because I don't know what, talk about karmic, I don't know, there's a lot of doingness in my life. And I remember I went through a period where and it was around time, relationship with time. I said, because I know people would come up to me and say, the first thing they would say, and it still happens actually sometimes, is, I know you're really, really busy, but do you have time for this? And I sort of felt bad that they would just feel they're disturbing me. It would begin with, I know you're really, really busy. Sorry to bother you. I know you've got so much going on. And so I decided that whenever they approached me, I would have a very easy nature. And when you start to experience inner peace, it becomes a little addictive. And you prefer that experience to the pressure and rush of desires and ego and all of these forces. So whenever they came, I would sort of have this little internal alignment of just feeling like I have all the time in the world. Just really, because I didn't want that to be the first line. All the time in the world. And they say, do you have time for this? I'd have a long list of things I'm supposed to get done for the next day. Oh, yes, I have time.
It's become a habit now.
I don't know if it's become a habit. I abandoned that program a while ago. But it was an interesting experiment because I started to notice how time shifted. Things shifted. When we're not driven so much by external forces as by internal capacities. It is a karma when we make that choice. And I noticed things started to shift and operate differently. So it's something to experiment with. It takes, of course, a lot of trust. And it's not meant to be, it's coming from a love of really experiencing my true nature as a soul. I really enjoy that silence, that stillness, that peace. We get addicted to feeling that, which is soul consciousness. And we definitely prefer that over rushed, pressured, anxious, stress. So the more we'll start to choose that and trust that. We often call it, do you trust spirituality? So it's a power.
I can feel many would say, okay, that sounds great. Okay, let me try it. And then at the moment, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
How do I
absolutely.
pause right now? I'm not going to get
Absolutely.
this thing done.
Absolutely. You know, and I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight. I mean, first there has to just be the intention, the openness. And maybe one time out of 100, we're able to actually apply it, you know, first, and then we just drop by drop keep improving. But yeah, I remember one time there was many projects. If a project comes and they'll say, okay, well, this should take you about 3 or 4 weeks. In my head, I say, if it's supposed to take me 3 to 4 weeks, it will have to take 1 week. Like there always has to be this incredible efficiency of time. I don't have 3 to 4 weeks. So there was a few of these projects, big projects, brochures. One was a magazine spread, another one was a brochure. It was quite interesting, all coinciding. And I remember, and I was working with a lawyer in Toronto who was representing the group doing the magazine. And he was very, very sweet, and we're working on it. Meanwhile, I've got these other things I'm supposed to be doing. And all the time trying to, just wanting to be peaceful, just still finding time. One day I'm lying in bed at night, and I'm doing the calculation. Even with my strange math, these were still not going to get done. There simply was not enough time. And so then I remember starting to feel anxious. And then I had to go a little bit deeper. What's causing that uneasiness? Is it the pressure of time? Or is it a lack of spiritual development? What will happen to you if you don't get the projects done? And that's when you realize what's driving us.
You won't be liked is the
You
bottom
won't
line.
be liked, right? Ego will be disturbed.
Right.
Desires will be disturbed.
Mm.
Because there's like, okay, some people may be disappointed or not like you. I said, wait a minute, that's it? That's the worst thing. And it's not like I'm going to explode or something. I might explode if I try to work. It's like, that's it. That's all that's really going to happen. Of course, we have to try our best. It's not.
But I'm assuming when you said, but that's it, you already had some really clear sense of self-respect. Because if you don't, it still would make you feel like you would explode.
Part of again why you don't come on these spiritual because you're tired of being
exactly.
driven by that. So I remember thinking, oh, if that's all that's going to happen, because the bottom line is I love what I do. I feel very lucky to be creating all the time. I feel very, very lucky. I will do it and to do it for free. And so I thought, oh, if that's all that's going to happen, it's fine. I fell asleep. So, and I could go back to doing it with that love and that easiness, and absolute miracles happen. I'll never forget the next day, the lawyer called me, working on the magazine spread, and he says, I've shown it to the team and they don't like it. They don't like what you've done. And we have to change it. I remember thinking inside, there is no time to change it, but I just kept listening. I said, and he had been a bit distant actually during the whole, but suddenly turned into this warm, fuzzy bear. And he said, you know what? I can't ask you to do that. I'm really torn. He said, I don't want to hurt your feelings by taking the project. And so I'm going, please take the project. I don't want to hurt your feelings by taking the project, but I also think it's insulting to ask you at this juncture to redo. Because of that, I'm so sorry, but we're going to take the project away from you. I'm like, oh. So, I was fascinated by that one. It felt like that 1 second lying in bed of returning to easiness by understanding what makes us uneasy, shifted the drama completely. It was quite fascinating. So what makes us uneasy? Is it things outside? Is it even time? Or is it that lack of soul consciousness, which means there's ego, expectations, desires? Those forces are what is making us uneasy. We don't have to step away from projects or anything. We have to learn, understand how to become free from those inner resources that are causing a lot of uneasiness.
I had a huge realization yesterday because about this piece, if there's no self-respect, then you're constantly trying to fulfill everybody's expectations.
Absolutely.
And I guess really what self-respect is then it is that you feel, like practically feel you have those inner resources and you're not looking out.
Yeah, and you get to operate from a place of love. Because sometimes we say self-respect, we again confuse it with a non-spiritual form. I'm going to assert myself, set boundaries, I'm going to set some rules, I'm going to change how I use my time, I'm going to be clear.
Quite righteous about
that. And that's not the soft power we're talking about. That's not easy. That's actually quite violent. Spiritually developed self-respect enables, unlocks, actually enlarges the heart. You're able to reconnect with doing things with love rather than the pressure of those other inner forces. And when you do things with love, love is said to be on the other end of the spectrum from ego. When you do it with love, we know what happens when we do things with love. Our capacities multiply. Again, a mother lifting the car off the burning car of the baby rather than the car of the burning baby. Lifting the burning car off the baby, we know that love multiplies our capacities. So that's, to me, is real self-respect. You're not stepping away from anyone, you're not stepping on anyone. You're just shifting what's driving you.
I really felt that, through all these years that there is what the connection between self-respect and soul consciousness is, where you're not looking outwards. And I guess my final thought was one of the spiritual students in the study, Daddy Gulzar, they were shared the other night. This is a soul with so much silence, doesn't speak a lot, but it was shared that she has so much self-respect. It was very, I don't know why I realized it was very surprising to hear and made me think about, do we have strange ideas of what self-respect means? Just because she doesn't speak much, but she's a very powerful soul.
Yes, and if you watch her in motion, when we watch her on the stage in a public event, many would almost feel that she is just that other people are controlling a puppet, that other people can sit here, do that, look at this one, speak to this one, and she would always be like, but you can feel the grace and royalty of that soul, that they have nothing. And they're so free, that they can actually cooperate. They can actually empower. It's such an education to witness that. And you realize we are so off track in terms of our ideas. This soul is very powerful. And they win just through the power of their beautiful stage, not by forcing or desiring, or they never even use the power of their mind to make things happen. They use the power of their mind only to be in that silence with God, trusting whatever is beneficial will unfold. And I remember they were sharing, again, the soul had nothing, they're not even really communicating at this point, but in the last month, we need a lot of medical care. The amount of cooperation, the people were treating them like they are the leader of the country. She got the VIP room that usually is reserved for. It was just fascinating. And you felt it really was the power of that beautiful, easy, silent, respectful stage. She had no desires. And yet, because of that, they won so much cooperation, support, and respect from others. So we're really kind of sometimes going in the wrong, opposite direction.
For sure. Well, thank you. It was such a beautiful topic. And hopefully it inspires us to really go back to the how as appealing as the what is. So perhaps we'll have a little reflection.
Like a diamond deep underground, within every single human soul, there is this timeless state of being spiritual. It might have become covered up by forgetfulness, by turning to the outer world for attainment, but it's always there. Some call it the highest potential, some call it the greatness of the human spirit. It's always there, this capacity for incredible inner beauty, inner peace. At some point in our lives, eventually, maybe through choice, maybe through crisis, we are drawn to start mining our inner world and reconnecting with that true nature of deep peace. If that is the answer to everything, this deep peace that liberates us from desiring, begging, manipulating, controlling, worrying, fearing. It is a state of complete well-being. And when I'm in that state, I not only become much more easy, calm with what is unfolding around me, but I'm able to contribute more, cooperate more, have more compassion. That is, be a benevolent presence. Out of that deep peace, that complete easiness, there flows so much benevolence, so much benefit. Time is not just saved, it's used in the most effective way. Om Shanti.
This evening, I don't think we have any new news or updates about any sessions. Our experience sessions are very lovely for souls to join. Just to actually experience, that's the most important thing. Of course, these interviews are very informative, but we're always encouraging the experience. So we have the experience sessions, which take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Sundays, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's Mountain Daylight Savings Time starting on Sunday. And then we also have Soul Cafe sessions. And those are on Saturdays, 2 to 3 p.m. Again, Mountain Daylight Savings Time. And you're welcome to visit the website as well for other sessions. Thank you for joining.